Yes, people, welcome back to the Magpie Channel TV. Now, you used to see me in my car out and about doing videos. This man lives in his car, mattress in the back. Right, we're outside St James's Park. Not that you can see that on everyone's lips for now. Is who's next? Sven Botman?
Well, it looks like it. I mean, Botman was obviously one of their first choices. They have a long list of defenders that they're looking at. They have potentially approached. They've maybe sounded out. I think Botman has been mentioned for a long time because he's one of the most highly regarded young defenders in Europe. What I like about him, if they manage to get him, is that he's 20, 21 years old. He could stay here for the next 5 years and make a real difference. He's not someone coming towards the end of their career. I mean, listen, obviously Trippier's still got a lot of legs in him, but at 31, you know, he signed a 2.5 plus 1 year extension. Is he going to be playing here beyond that? Unlikely. Whereas someone like Botman, you could give him a 5 or a 6 year deal and you could build your defence round about him. I've not seen enough of him to know what he's like. I watched him against Celtic in the Europa League last season and I thought he was quick, he was good in the ball, but that was only the one match. I've not seen, other than little clips on YouTube and stuff, I've not seen that much more, but he obviously comes highly regarded. He is their number one target. We obviously brought you the news earlier today that they'd made that second offer to Leo for him. Is it going to be enough? That's a question. It sounds to me like Lille are holding out for a lot of money. I mean, this is a guy who's still got like over 3 years in his contract, so you know the club are in the position of power here. However, if he has expressed an interest to come here, and we saw his social media activity earlier on today, then sometimes it's difficult for a player to keep him. That's what happened with Trippier. I mean, Diego Simeone desperately wanted to keep him, but as soon as Trippier made it clear he wanted to leave, that was it. I think it's been a similar thing with Philippe Coutinho and Aston Villa as well. So. Yeah, time will tell. I think he is a number one target, but I'm aware of a number of other defenders that they've either spoken about or they've discussed or that are on their list. So I think it's a case of they have a target. If they don't get that, then they work their way down the list. There's a lot of available players out there that are decent. They want to get the right ones, but I think for Newcastle in this current situation is just get some bodies in, some decent bodies in that are going to improve the team. And do you know what? If you're not going to get your first target, don't waste a week or 10 days on it. Like, you've not got time to do that. You need to get 4 or 5 bodies in now. If it's going to be a no, find out early doors and move on to your next target. That's what it feels like they're doing. If they get Botman, and Trippier, that's two of their priority players. That's a great start to the window. You could even bring in 2 strikers, and that would probably be not enough, but it would be a decent window as far as I'm concerned, given the fact how difficult January is. So Botman looks like it's got a chance. Again, it'll come down to figures. If not, I believe there's a number of others that are on their list and they've inquired about that they'll turn to. So I'm confident that you'll get at least one more defender in, if not 2.
Nice change, isn't it? You must be changing it. Like the amount of Januaries you normally have quiet transfer windows. And
Mate, it feels weird. It feels really weird. Like, we just did a little bit on Sky Sports News there, and you were singing like a canary.
I'm normally miserable.
Yeah, I know. And like for me, I've obviously just spoken to fans who have been unhappy. Even just like when you go out in town or for a drink or whatever, and everyone wants to talk about it, and everyone has a smile on their face, and everyone's engaged by it all. And obviously that's not been the case for a long time. And you know, I've lived here for 8 years, covering the northeast, covering this club, and it's not been good at times. You know, I've stood and we're sat right here outside St James's Park in the car, and I've stood in this car park, and it's been freezing cold and lonely and quite depressing at times. And although it's still freezing cold and lonely, it feels a bit more uplifted. Yeah. You know, everything just feels better, and people have got a spring in their step. But I think the owners are well aware that they still need to have a successful window. Definitely. I think if you get to the end of January and you've signed, say, Kieran Trippier and one other, that's not enough. And I think they know that, and I think there's a real pressure on them to add at the moment, and it's a notoriously difficult window to work in. And I think they know that the good feeling that the club are just bouncing along on just now can soon kind of dissolve a little bit unless they have a good window. So I do think there's pressure on them to work in. I know they're working around the clock to do that. It'll be really interesting to see where we're at the end of the month, 31st of January, how many bodies are in. But listen, it's good, it's fun to be involved in. It's a lot of hard work. It's not just the stuff for me, it's not just the stuff you see on the TV. You're on your phone. I must be charging my phone 5 times a day, making calls, trying to find stuff out, trying to keep people, agents and contacts on side, and it's difficult. It really is difficult, but you know what, I would rather it was like that than we were forgotten about in January, which has been the case for 30 transfer windows for you guys. I've been here for 8 years, so this is my 17th transfer window, and I honestly can say it's the first one I've entered and actually felt quite positive about being busy.
I think I'm doing some graph for a change. Having a graph for a change.
Yeah, no, we'll do a little bit.
Couple of names I'm going to fire off you then before we finish the video. Lucas Digne.
Well, I don't think he wants to come, by the sounds of it. I think Newcastle were keen on him. I think as soon as a player though says he doesn't want to come and he would rather go elsewhere, you need to move on. You don't want a player who feels like they're here under duress. West Ham, Chelsea both interested. It sounds like noises what I'm hearing that Chelsea is his preferred destination. And you know, they're obviously missing Ben Chilwell for a while. If that's the case, let him go there. Like, don't chase a guy who obviously doesn't want to be here. He obviously fell out with Rafa Benitez. I'm not saying he's trouble, but like, do you want players who potentially could upset things? You want proper characters in here, like Trippier. So, do you know what? I would just move on. I think they probably,
You know what? If he doesn't want to come, just forget it.
I think they probably have already. I know obviously I ran the story about Sean Longstaff the other night. I think there's still a chance that deal could be done separately. Rafa's desperate to get him in there. He's obviously coming towards the end of his contract, but he's not going to be allowed, certainly not going to be allowed to leave until they get a replacement in, because I think Eddie Howe does rate him, and I think he would like to keep him. It's the contractual situation that's difficult because he's nearing the end of his contract. But the one thing they will not want to do right now, with the amount of injuries they've got, the amount of COVID absentees they've got, the one thing they do not want to do is lose a player without a replacement. And
Sky are running Todd Cantwell at the minute. What's the latest on him?
So this came from one of my colleagues, Darmish Sheth. He said that there's interest there, and I think there has been talks. Interesting to hear from Dean Smith today, actually, who pretty much alluded to the fact that he's probably he didn't say I don't know if he's going to be here at the end of the window, and then said we can't compete with Newcastle's financial muscle. So put two and two together there. He's obviously a player that Eddie Howe and his coaching staff like. He obviously did so well for Norwich in the Championship when Howe and then Jason Tindall were in charge. So, you know, I could see him being a good addition. I'm not sure if would he go straight into the starting 11? Probably at the moment with the amount of injuries you've got. But I think he would be a decent addition. If you can get him for, you know, if you can get him for 10, 15 million pounds, then that's decent for a young player like that whose contract's sort of coming towards an end. I don't know if he's a priority for them. I don't think the position's a priority, but if you can nab someone like that fairly cheaply, then do it. So that sounds like it's got legs in it as well, that one.
Tell you what is a priority. Striker. Now that we know that Wilson's out for a while. The extent of that injury still to be revealed through scans that are coming shortly. It's not looking good though. Many strikers have been linked. Quickly, Aubameyang, Martial. What about crazy bids for Vlahovic? 70 million.
I don't know anything
from Italian journalists.
I don't know anything about Vlahovic, I have to say. And I'm not saying it's false, but I don't have anything in that. And I don't think, from what I'm hearing, Newcastle are going to spend that sort of money this transfer window. It might be the kind of money they spend in the future when they're building, but at the moment they're just trying to stay in the division. And I don't think you go and spend 70 million pounds on a striker to try and stay in the division. And just don't think you spend that kind of money on a striker when you're trying to stay in the division. I just think it would be remiss of them to spend that sort of money right now. So I don't have that information. I'm not knocking down anyone else's stories, but I'd be very surprised if that happened. Aubameyang and Martial. Aubameyang, we were told no earlier on in the week. However, I think that's the sort of one that could change later in the window if Arsenal don't lose him if they don't manage to push him out the door anywhere else. Obviously he's fallen out with Mikel Arteta. We all know he's a great player. Obviously he's got a little bit of issues behind the scenes there, but he's on over £300,000 a week. Newcastle will not pay that on a loan. I would imagine they'll probably play up to 100,000. So that is the sort of one I think that come later on in the window, if he's still at Arsenal, they've not found a temporary home for him. Newcastle are desperate, they might come to some kind of deal to bring him in on loan. Eddie Howe wants players who've played in the Premier League. He's done that. He's done terrifically well for Arsenal in the past. So I don't think that one's live at the moment, but I wouldn't totally rule it out. Who was the other one you said? Origi? No.
There's that many. Origi, Martial,
Origi's like that as well. I think that's one that they could turn to later. Liverpool have said today that they don't want to sell him. I think they like having him as a backup striker. They've tried to get him before Newcastle a couple of times in transfer windows and not been able to. I think he wants to get away and play football. You would imagine he would fancy a move here to play. I don't think he's high up the list, but again, if things get desperate towards the end of the window, that's another one they could turn to. And Martial, I think, again, not high up the list, but He ticks the boxes, having played here before. So I think honestly, I wouldn't rule out anyone. I think they're juggling at the moment. I think they're juggling so many
List
balls.
is that long.
Yeah, I think so. Another one I would not be surprised to see here would be Dominic Solanke.
Eddie Howe's best mate.
Yeah, Howe likes him, and I know he obviously struggled when Howe first signed him, but he's had a really good start to the Championship this season. Yes, it's the Championship, but if you have to bring in 2 strikers, I could easily see them bringing in someone to lead the line, and then a Solanke is maybe a backup in the absence of Callum Wilson. So, and I think there's interest in a couple of guys abroad as well. But I think if Eddie Howe could have his pick, he would rather it was someone who'd
hit the ground running.
Honestly, when you look at the striking department, there's not one that stands out for me at the moment. It's hard to think of one who would really. I mean, I've said for a while that Newcastle should be looking at the likes of Alfredo Morelos at Rangers. I said it to you, I think, last January. That is, for me, the sort of player that they should be trying. I mean, he can play up front on his own, scores goals. I think he's ready-made for the Premier League. I said the same. I'm surprised that no one's gone for him before now. I said the same thing about Odsonne Edouard at Celtic, and he's had a decent start to his Crystal Palace career. The other one is Moussa Dembele, who was there before Edouard. I mean, I think Dembele's the best of the 3. He'd be hard. He'd cost a lot of money to get him out of Lyon. Is it Lyon? Is that?
Yeah. That would be my number one.
He'd hard to get him out, and you can play any 3 of them up front on their own. I think Morelos, you could probably get him for a decent amount of money. Like I honestly think he'd be a good signing in the absence of anyone that I can see like out there that's really standing out. It's so hard to buy a striker in this window.
It is.
So
Who's going to come in and score goals in January? Right then, that'll do. Thanks very much for your time, mate.
Yep.
We'll stay tuned. I'm sure there'll be a whole host of other names linked across the next week, 2 weeks.
Can't
3
wait
weeks.
till the 31st.
Need a holiday, mate.
I know.
Need a holiday in February. Right, and cheers for watching, everyone. Drop your comments below who you think and who you'd like Newcastle United to sign in the remainder of this window. Subscribe to the Magpie Channel TV, and see you later.